Every year when Americans celebrate the 4th of July, there's firecrackers, hot dogs, picnics, but I think in all the celebration we really lost what this country was really founded on and the courage it took to start this country, to begin supposedly the freest nation on earth. The British were oppressors. They were camping in people's homes, people were being shot, people were pulled off the streets being arrested. And finally, the so-called founding fathers, the group of them that we all know about, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, decided it was time, enough's enough. So they wanted to tell the world, we're going to declare independence from Great Britain. And that started the Revolutionary War and led to the writing of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Thomas Jefferson was picked by the group that decided to issue a Declaration of Independence to write it because he was a good writer. He was known for his eloquence. And Jefferson did a little research, and what he finally said, and he put it down in his letters, he said, I didn't write anything new in the Declaration of Independence. It's what Americans were thinking at the time. It was what was in the American mind. So what were the basic arguments in the Declaration of Independence that gave the colonists, the small 13 colonies, the right to rebel against the large British Empire? Let me read the key paragraph in the Declaration of Independence, and we'll talk about it for just a moment. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. In less than 200 words, Jefferson puts down some of the most revolutionary ideas that have ever been put on a piece of paper. If you listen carefully, he said, if a government, any government, violates the consent of the governed, which would be our Constitution or our Bill of Rights, the people had a right to alter or abolish the government. In other words, have a revolution. They knew better to establish those rights on the idea that governments give them or that men grant them. If you listen carefully again, it was the Creator. They said all our rights come from God. They're absolute. If they come from God, government can't give them, can't give us our rights, but most of all, they can't violate those rights. To do so, they go against the will of the Creator. Revolutionary idea. Today, most Americans, if you ask them where their rights come from, they'll say the United States government or the state of Virginia or Nevada, where people happen to live. But the people who wrote the Constitution and who wrote the Declaration of Independence, they believed it was God that gave us our rights, which meant that the state was not only accountable to the people, but it was accountable to a higher law, what they call the higher law, which is the laws of nature. God put things in nature to specifically guide us and lead us, and in our hearts, in what we would say today, in our genes. We've forgotten these principles today. Most Americans don't realize what's even in the Declaration of Independence. 15, 20 years ago in Philadelphia, they passed out the Declaration of Independence to people in the streets and asked them what they thought, and most people said, "Wow, this is really radical stuff." These are terrorists. So the people who wrote the Declaration of Independence had a whole different idea of where our rights come from and how to practice them. So we can shoot off the firecrackers, we can eat the hot dogs, we can go on the picnics, but if we don't start and return to what these people gave us, radical ideas that it's the people, we have a right to alter the government, we have a right to abolish it if we want, if they don't listen to us. And today, systematically, over the last 3 or 4 presidential administrations, our rights have been violated, and we've allowed them to do it. So maybe it's time to consider some of those key principles in the Declaration of Independence, share them with your family, your friends, and let's return to our roots, Americans.